different. I want you and anyone who's listening to imagine the last couple of years without the Office of Attorney General and where we would be as a state had that situation existed, or at least an Attorney General's office that was not prepared to be engaged in ways that we have been engaged in the past. I want to begin with the Champlain's Block Island case. That was a case where the people of Block Island's interests were being ignored, where a state agency, the CRMC, was ignoring the law and going into a hotel room and working out a settlement that violated the law, did not protect the interests of the environment, and ignored the wishes of the people of Block Island. We intervened in that case for obvious reasons. And as a result of that intervention, which we fought in the Superior Court and fought all the way to the Supreme Court, ultimately the right thing was done, which was that the Supreme Court denied the expansion of that marina, and the interests of the people of Block Island, the broader interests of the people of the state of Rhode Island, and the environment's interests were vindicated. But had we not intervened in that case, there would have been a very different result. Similarly, I want to talk about the sale of Narragansett Electric by National Grid to Rhode Island Energy. We intervened in that action because we were concerned that the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers, not the Public Utilities Commission, the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers would not adequately protect the Rhode Island ratepayers' interests in evaluating the sale of that public utility. And we were, again, proven correct. Because had we not appealed the ultimate decision of the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers, Rhode Islanders would have lost. Now, the standard for approval for that transaction was whether or not the transaction was in the public's interests. And yet, the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers decision took the public interest and evaluated it this way. And what they said was, if an energy company is in the black and knows how to deliver energy, then the transaction should be approved because it is in the public's interests. Doesn't matter what the impact of the transaction is on ratepayers, and it doesn't matter what the impact of the transaction is on climate, notwithstanding the Act on Climate, which this General Assembly passed just a few years ago. And we fought that decision in court before Judge Stern. And Judge Stern agreed with the position of the Office of Attorney General. And what he said was that evidently the DPUC in its decision decided that convenience for an energy company was more important than the interests of Rhode Islanders. And as a result, we were able to leverage that decision to the benefit of Rhode Islanders in this way. And I want to be clear, nobody else was in that fight from government. Had we not been there, none of the following would have happened. There wouldn't have been $50 million in gas and electric rate credits for Rhode Islanders. There wouldn't have been the forgiveness of $43.5 million of defaulted accounts, costs that would have been passed on to ratepayers. $103 million in transition costs would have been passed on to ratepayers, and there would have been no requirement that the utility consider the Act on Climate in every decision that the utility makes. So I want to be clear about that. Had not my office stepped in, and only my office, nobody else was there, no one else was there from government, my office and my office alone, Rhode Islanders would have been out $200 million. And we all know how energy rates have gone up for Rhode Islanders in the past year. I sent the members of this committee a link to a CBS News story about healthcare today. And I sent that to you. It's short, and I hope that you'll watch it. Because in that story is a message which I think hasn't fully been appreciated by everyone in Rhode Island, including parts of government. It's really a reference to Roger Williams and Fatima Hospitals. I want to be very clear. Had this office not acted 2 years ago, in my opinion, one or both of those hospitals today would be closed or in danger of closing. Here's why I say that. I sent you the link, okay, because it's a discussion of a hospital owned by the same company, Prospect Medical Holdings, involving a community hospital, much like Roger Williams and Fatima, a 100-year-old hospital outside Pennsylvania, where Prospect first closed the maternity wards, and then the operating rooms, and then the ICU, and then the emergency rooms. And so a mother who had a breast infection, who went to the emergency room for help, was told to go elsewhere, to Google another hospital to get the kind of health care she needed. That's the company that owns Roger Williams and Fatima. That company has closed 5 out of the 20 hospitals that it owns across the country in the last several years. And had we not acted 2 years ago to put $80 million in the bank that I control, I am telling you, one or both of those hospitals would either be closed today or in danger of closing. And again, it was only the Office of Attorney General that acted. We brought in $6 million from a lawsuit against Juul for deceptive marketing. From a lawsuit against Navient, we've achieved $4.6 million in student loan forgiveness for Rhode Islanders. Recently, we brought a lawsuit with DEM to stop wastewater, to stop sewage from going into the Blackstone River. We stopped a medical waste recycling plant in East Greenwich and West Greenwich and West Warwick. We achieved the largest environmental penalty in a Clean Air Act case in the history of the state against Sims Metals Recycling, which was polluting the air in Johnston. We worked with our partners in Providence to achieve access at the end of Public Street. I know, Representative, how important it is to you, Representative Diaz, to have public access at the end of Public Street, and I'm grateful for your support in that matter. We've held expungement clinics. No one else was holding expungement clinics in this state. Not the law school, not the public defender's office. We held expungement clinics to help Rhode Islanders who needed help getting their criminal records expunged, that were eligible for expungement, get those records expunged. Our Urban Violent Crime Initiative has achieved outstanding results. We have doubled our ability to do ballistics testing in the state, and not only doubled the capacity, but made the turnaround a matter of hours rather than weeks. What that means is investigators like the state police sitting in this room, Providence, ATF, can turn around their ballistic testing, as I said, in hours, 24/7, through a new ballistics testing machine that we have in our Howard Avenue complex. And so I think that we can agree that the work of the office is impressive. And yet the staff is struggling to keep up. We defend the state and actions brought against the state. And, you know, the ones that make the news is a small percentage of what we're handling. Right now, we're handling 600 cases for the state. Civil litigation where the state has been sued. I'm not talking about where we're suing somebody on behalf of the state. We've talked about some of that work. Where the state has been sued, 600 pending cases with a total exposure of nearly $70 million. And that doesn't include 12% prejudgment interest as a result of a decision of the Supreme Court a few years ago. So the stakes there are very high. Our criminal prosecutors are carrying between 250 and 300 cases each. The Special Victims Unit, which handles cases against children, child molestation, sexual assaults, felony domestic assaults, they've handled 400 cases involving crimes against children over the last 5 years alone. When we talk about violent crime, gun cases, we've charged and disposed of 829 gun cases in 2022. We have 12,000 pending criminal cases that are being handled by approximately 70 prosecutors. I want to note that the Delaware Attorney General's office, in a state the same size as Rhode Island, actually a little bit smaller in terms of population, but the same mission as ours, has twice the number of personnel that we have, twice as many lawyers and twice as many support staff to do exactly the same thing. And so I come to you this year asking for resources, as I asked the governor, not to do something, not to promise to do something, but to show you what we've already done, things that no one else was doing, steps that we took that no one else took to protect the people of the state, and ask for an investment. And I'll just go over a few of them. Those 20 FTEs, 2 of them would be for an attorney and a paralegal in our healthcare unit. Why? Because, as my presentation to already may demonstrate, healthcare isn't going away, okay? When we looked at the merger, here's what we found. That we had 2 weak systems that wanted to combine into one really big weak system. There isn't a hospital in this state that isn't weak, okay? And they're weak because their reimbursement rates are too low, mostly in Medicaid. Okay, they're running at 70% public payer as opposed to 30% private payer all across the state. In Massachusetts, it's 50-50. What does that mean? They make, well, less money. They can get to the black in terms of operability, but they can't invest in their facilities. What's the long-term solution to that? I'll ask you, has anyone come before you in any of your hearings and talked about who's doing that strategic thinking? Well, I can tell you that we are. With how many people? One. We were on a call with the Department of Health recently about a lab issue, and there were 4 lawyers at the Department of Health that were on that call. I have 1 healthcare attorney, and yet we're evaluating the healthcare transactions. We're actually issuing decisions when it comes to mergers, unlike the Department of Health that isn't. And I have 1 person working on healthcare in the office. Is it too much to ask for a second? I suggest that it's not. We talk about energy. I have 1 person doing energy. 1 person doing energy. Who else was at the table last year fighting for Rhode Islanders in the sale of that transaction? My office was. Who was it? It was Nicholas Vaz. I can tell you who it was because there's only 1 person in my office who does it. And I guarantee that very few Rhode Islanders know about Nicholas Vaz. But he saved them a heck of a lot of money last year, I'll tell you that. And so I ask, is it too much to ask for 1 more person, 1 more attorney, and 1 more paralegal to fight for Rhode Islanders when it comes to energy? God knows we talk about it enough. Who else is fighting? I would suggest nobody. There's a lot of talk, but there's very few people in the fight. And we've asked for a cold case unit so that people like Lauren Malloy can get justice for her mother and for herself. I can't do cold cases when my prosecutors are handling 300 cases each. It's not possible. We need a cold case unit. The state police, I mean, I heard the governor talk about the state police, and I respect the state police very much. But these cold cases aren't state police cold cases, and they'll acknowledge that if you ask them. These are Providence police cases mostly, not exclusively. Lauren Malloy's case is from East Providence. But these are municipal police department cases. We know how significant violent crime is. We need more prosecutors to handle violent crime. There are more guns. State police will tell you they've never seized more guns than this year. Neither have we prosecuted as many cases. We've asked for lawyers to handle more of our government litigation cases. I've talked to our people. I talked to them yesterday. They're burning out. They're burning out representing the state in those 600 cases. Let me tell you something, if I can, with your permission. There are a lot of lawyers in this state. A lot of lawyers, a lot of state lawyers. I ask Kerry sometimes, I don't think you've done it yet. Tell me how many lawyers work for the state compared to the number of lawyers in my office. Yet when the state gets sued, the Department of Correction lawyers don't defend the Department of Corrections. The Department of Health lawyers don't defend the Department of Health. The DOT lawyers don't defend the DOT. The governor's lawyers don't go into court and defend the governor. They want me to do it. So when I ask for 20 lawyers, my office is half the size that it should be. I don't view that as a big ask. When I ask for 20 lawyers and I get none in the governor's budget, I ask, why not? And so that's my presentation. And I apologize for my passion, but I feel strongly about the work. We've delivered for Rhode Islanders when no one else has. And if you give me the resources, representatives, we'll continue to deliver. And we'll leave an office behind when I leave in 3.5 years that will continue to deliver, but I got to build it. I got half the house up. I need the money for the other half. Give me the resources, and I will deliver for you and the people of the state. But I can't do it without the resources. So I thank you so much for your attention and your time.